Brazen.
One day in 2010, Neeraj Arora was trying to locate an office building.
This little dinky office.
He was in Mountain View, California, home to some of the world's biggest tech companies. But unlike the sprawling corporate campuses throughout Silicon Valley, this office he was looking for was tucked away in a building it shared with another company.
So I go in to a conference room, which was not really a conference room. It had no ceiling. So people outside could hear what we are talking about. So I was a little surprised.
Surprised because this was the headquarters of an impressive new messaging app that Neeraj was scoping out. He worked in M&A and corporate development at Google, and it was his job to find promising new companies that the tech giant might want to acquire. And in all of his travels to startups in the Bay Area, he wasn't used to seeing such a drabby office.
There was no fridge with fancy snacks. There was no colorful sofas. None of that shit was there. It felt like a trucking company's office. I kid you not. It was the weirdest startup office I'd seen by then.
The startup? WhatsApp. An instant messaging app that was changing the way people texted with friends and family around the world. And it already had millions of users.
I had never heard of them. I did not know who the founders were. I had to look it up.
So he looked up the company, sent a few messages trying to get in touch with the co-founders, and eventually got the invitation to meet with them at their humble office in Mountain View.
We sit down and we talked about close to 45 minutes an hour.
This was a meeting with the co-founders, Brian Acton and Jan Koum.
And Jan hardly spoke a word.
Koum was also CEO.
He can come off as a very intimidating character. Brian did most of the talking, and we asked them a little bit about what their vision is.
Their vision for the seemingly small startup was this.
The goal was to build a cross-platform, very simple messaging app that does a lot better than what SMS is capable of doing, and also be inexpensive because it uses your data or Wi-Fi to operate.
It was an intriguing concept, but Neeraj was especially taken with Acton and Koum.
These two guys were completely different. One, they were complete engineers. They had no interest in building a company or a business. They were so focused on building a utility that they did not care about anything else. The focus on building a product that serves a lot of people across the globe was so clear. They came across as very genuine, down to earth, serious, want to stay away from the hype of the valley. There was nothing about them on the website. They never talked about themselves. They just wanted their product to go out and serve the users. And it was so refreshing and so different from anything else I had seen in the valley. I almost didn't believe it, that they are sitting here in Mountain View.
Neeraj's next move, he made them an offer to join Google.
The offer price went up from 10, 12 million as the first offer to 100 million as the last offer. They declined all those offers.
Acton and Koum told Neeraj they didn't want to be part of a big company again. They'd already been longtime employees at Yahoo before they started WhatsApp. They told him,
"We love Google, but no thank you."
Once again, Neeraj was taken aback.
To reject that at that time was, for me, surprising, and also my respect for them went up 10 notches. Wow, these guys are something else. I have not seen something like this before. When I met them, I just fell in love with what they were doing.
At this point, he had to make a decision. He knew he wanted to be part of whatever Acton and Koum were building, but he couldn't seem to bring them into the Google fold. Then, a kind of wild idea. What about, rather than trying to bring them in, he jumped ship and joined them instead? He spent the next several months pitching himself to the co-founders. Part of his pitch was that he'd take care of the operations so that the two of them could focus on engineering, on building out the product itself. And in 2011, the year after he stepped into the WhatsApp office for the first time, Neeraj left Google to join them.
There were no meetings. There was no chit-chat. It was just go to work, get your shit done, and go back. And I think once I was past 6 months, I think I was fine. I think I was able to build that trust with them. I think they liked me. And I was okay, great. This is it. And then the rest is history.
History then unfolded over 12 years, where Neeraj became a critical member of the WhatsApp executive team.
In 2014, I was the chief business officer of WhatsApp.
An app that today serves billions of users all over the world.
And I helped negotiate the $22 billion sale to Facebook.
A sale that still ranks as the largest ever purchase of a company backed by venture capital.
And today I regret it.
On this episode, how Facebook acquired WhatsApp, as told by the app's former chief business officer, Neeraj Arora. Why he regrets the sale today, and how all of it affects how our privacy is handled online. This is The Closer, the inside story of the deals that changed the world. I'm Aimee Keane. We'll be back after the break. WhatsApp was a different kind of Silicon Valley startup from the beginning.
One thing that I think is important to say is WhatsApp wasn't just like a company for these guys. It was like a mission.
This is Kirsten Grind. She's an enterprise reporter for the Wall Street Journal.
They really wanted to bring free messaging and privacy to the people. That was really what they were trying to do.
And they were succeeding. Acton and Coombe founded the company in 2009, and by 2012 had over 100 million users. Part of the success came from the fact that at the time, people text messaging over SMS were charged for cellular use, whereas WhatsApp relied on an internet connection. It was also more effective at sending messages with photos and videos.
And so it was really this like huge deal and just had such big adoption.
The founders of WhatsApp decided early on that privacy was core to WhatsApp as a product and as a company.
Jan had a really interesting background. He grew up in Ukraine, and because of that, was just very nervous about privacy in general, had grown up in a communist country with secret police where your communications are watched. And both of them had this experience at Yahoo where they saw how it just ruined, in their opinions, the user experience when these big display ads were adopted.
So they decided,
we're not going to do ads, and privacy is key.
This meant that something called encryption was a central feature of the app. WhatsApp users could send a message that was scrambled or encrypted, and then decrypted only by the recipient, which kept those messages secure. Years later, WhatsApp would take its privacy promises a step further. It provided something called end-to-end encryption, which meant not even WhatsApp's server could see what was being sent on the platform.
So that was their big thing. Privacy, no ads.
The company was backed by just one big venture capital firm, Sequoia Capital.
It was well known as one of these big players in Silicon Valley, but they were the only investor in WhatsApp, which was really unusual.
There was a Sequoia partner named Jim Getz who actually helped Neeraj land the role at WhatsApp. According to Neeraj, Getz wanted a so-called business guy in the mix, but Acton and Coombe kept saying no to the people he sent their way. Since the co-founders were taking a liking to Neeraj, Getz was ready to make it happen.
He said, no, just tell me what you want. I'll get it done for you.
Shortly after Neeraj officially started working at WhatsApp, one of the biggest names in Silicon Valley came knocking.
There were multiple approaches, which were not direct. They were indirect, and they were more like, oh, I'm doing this deal. I'm working on a big deal. It's billions of dollars. But I would rather work with you guys if you're interested. I know you're not, but let us know.
It was Mark Zuckerberg.
He would talk to Jan once in a while to stay in touch. And he would do all these, funny tactics to really understand whether we are really interested or not. And we just kept on ignoring him.
Facebook was on a roll at this point. It had gone public in a much anticipated IPO. It splashed out $1 billion to buy Instagram. And yet the WhatsApp crew wasn't interested in the social network's advances. But then a couple things happened. One, WhatsApp came out with its user numbers, 400 million monthly active users as of December 2013.
First time we said we are bigger than Twitter. Everybody was like, what the hell is this company?
2, Facebook revamped its own Messenger app.
They actually took Messenger off the main app and made it like starting to look more like us. But they were struggling because WhatsApp was like just too deep and the network effects were strong.
We were becoming an existential threat to Facebook.
An existential threat, perhaps, as well as some Silicon Valley competition. Forbes reported at the time that Zuckerberg had caught wind that WhatsApp was set to meet with Google, a potential rival buyer. So executives at Facebook quickly put together an offer for a deal they'd been trying to make happen for 2 years.
That is when I think they finally made a big move. They finally came and said, look, this time things are different.
This was February 2014. And this time round, Facebook offered more of a partnership than a straightforward takeover.
You can stay independent. You can do whatever you want. We'll not force you to change anything in the product or make you monetize anything. Jan can join the board.
And they dangled a figure.
The first number was around $12 billion. Zuck was really charming. He was like, look, I want to make the biggest deal of my life, right? This is huge. We love what you guys are doing. And together we can really do well.
There was a lot about Zuckerberg's latest approach that felt different than the earlier ones to Niraj, Acton, and Koum. They were intrigued, but not quite ready to go all in. After several days of going back and forth over what the partnership would look like, they still hadn't landed on the right price.
It was a pretty big decision on both sides, and we were just consumed with like, are we doing the right thing? If we are doing the right thing, how do we do it?
Koum went over to Zuckerberg's house where they eventually got to a number, $19 billion. That same night, Koum called Niraj over to Zuckerberg's place to celebrate.
Yes, I think he knew that Jan's favorite whiskey was Blue Label, so he had a bottle ready.
But Niraj did not want to drink, just a toast.
It just got back and started thinking about how do we start working on this thing.
Facebook and WhatsApp got their legal teams ready to sort out the finer points of the deal, and they set up shop at WhatsApp's lawyers' offices to get things going. The social network proposed an exclusivity period, but WhatsApp declined. Niraj and his team wanted to make sure everyone was working quickly to get a deal done. The talks went fairly smoothly, except for one big point of contention, the breakup fee. This is the fee an acquiring company promises to pay the target company if the deal doesn't go through, say, for regulatory reasons.
That was the big sticking point that we were not able to agree on, and which took maybe, I would say, a few hours of back and forth and yelling to sort out. Basically, between me and the head of corporate on the other side in a room. But it was my job and the guy who was on the other side, their job to make sure that we get to some sort of an agreement. If we don't get to a number that we are happy with, we're very happy to just walk away from this thing.
Ready to walk away from the entire deal if they couldn't agree on the right number for the breakup fee. But they eventually got to it, $1 billion. With that big sticking point out of the way, there were a few more days and nights of folks on both sides negotiating the details and drawing up the deal documents.
Most of the time, Jan and Bright were there, but they would get some sleep at night and then come back early in the morning. And Zuck was there pretty much most of the time, and he would go back and come in again.
And then, in less than a week, the deal was complete.
Facebook is making a major move into mobile this morning. The social media behemoth is buying the messaging company WhatsApp. Facebook will pay $19 billion.
As you heard, Facebook has bought the mobile messaging service WhatsApp for $19 billion in cash.
Acton, along with his partner, are now newly minted billionaires after Facebook paid $19 billion for their messaging service, WhatsApp.
Yeah, I think it was a very emotional day because in the end, Jan had to sign on the line, right? That we agreed to everything and this is final. It was surreal.
At that time, there really weren't big acquisitions like this.
This is Kirsten Grind again.
So Facebook 2 years earlier had bought Instagram for $1 billion. And at that time, 2012, that was a massive deal.
So when the Facebook WhatsApp deal was announced for $19 billion, it was mind-blowing. The deal would end up closing near $22 billion because of the rise in Facebook's share price.
And it was the largest and continues to be the largest venture-backed deal, backed only by one venture capital firm, Sequoia. So it was just, astronomical.
So when the acquisition happened, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg promised a fairly hands-off approach to both WhatsApp co-founders. What changed?
What happened was two things. First of all, WhatsApp, already extremely popular, grew even more popular. So in a couple years after the acquisition, around 2016, it topped 1 billion users. And then at the same time, Facebook, for a variety of reasons, its own growth was slowing. So here are two things Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO at the time, were looking at, right? So there started to be pressure from the Facebook executives on the WhatsApp team to actually make money off this product.
Mm-hmm. And just to step back for a second, I mean, Facebook and WhatsApp, they were really different companies. Can you just give us a sense of what was so different between these two companies?
They literally could not be more different. So the way it operates is based on using data to monetize its products, right? WhatsApp was completely opposite.
So when the picture starts to shift for Zuckerberg and Sandberg, they're saying, okay, this company we acquired a few years ago has had explosive user growth. Meanwhile, growth at our core business is slowing down. So what do they want to do with WhatsApp?
So they basically wanted to loosen the bedrock of WhatsApp. They wanted them to kind of loosen their stance on privacy. I'm not saying Facebook was like, we want to suck up all this user data and use it, in the wrong way, but they wanted to probably be able to target ads to WhatsApp users, right? Basically, the worst thing that could be pitched to Jan and Brian.
Remember what Facebook promised back when the deal was verbally agreed?
As we reported at the Journal several years ago, in their contract, when Facebook had purchased WhatsApp, they actually got the company to agree to a clause that said, if you ever try and put ads in WhatsApp, we can leave and take our money, basically. So they were like, this is not happening.
Something else became important to Facebook executives.
Facebook was like, you need to move to our campus.
The campus was a whole different vibe than that small, understated WhatsApp office Neeraj first met Acton and Koopman years earlier.
The Facebook campus is like Disneyland. It's very overwhelming. There's shops and, ice cream and laundry and all of this. And that was just not what the WhatsApp people were used to.
And you'll remember what the WhatsApp people were used to.
There were no meetings. There was no chit chat. There was no fridge with fancy snacks. None of that shit was there.
So with the physical move of WhatsApp to Facebook's campus came a series of clashes over company culture.
So as you can imagine, when there's a really big issue, the really small issues start cropping up too. For example, WhatsApp's office was kind of in a crowded area where people would walk by. So they put up a sign saying, please be quiet or something like that. And then, of course, all the Facebook employees were sort of like, oh, WhatsApp, shut up, just this very catty stuff. And then another issue that emerged was over WhatsApp's bathroom stalls, which they had, you could argue, better bathrooms because the doors reached all the way to the floor. And
so the privacy everywhere.
Yes, even in the bathroom, exactly. So the Facebook people were like, why do they have better bathrooms? And they had bigger desks. And, Jan was even quibbling with Mark Zuckerberg about the chairs. And it just turned into this very not a happy environment.
Meanwhile, Facebook executives were still focused on monetization.
Cheryl's team started becoming a little impatient about, okay, I think we need to be a little bit more in control of how this thing scales on the business side, right? I think they had grown Facebook and Instagram, obviously, into such a big advertising product that it was difficult for them to think about something else, right? For them, a user was a user, and you could put a dollar value to that user.
But this wasn't quite how WhatsApp thought about its by now more than 1 billion users.
These guys were just so worried about that mucking up the user experience. And then it's like a slippery slope, right? Because if you're going to serve a user ads, you want them to be good ads, right? So then for them to be good ads, you need more user data. So that's loosening the privacy pillar that they were so staunchly in favor of. So to get more data, they're going to have to lose some of that encryption that they work so hard for. You really can't get into it without going all the way, if that makes sense. So I'm sure they saw that writing on the wall.
We were like, okay, this is not something which we signed up for.
Encryption, which had made WhatsApp such a groundbreaking app in its early days, which its users had requested and loved, and which was a core value to the company itself. For the WhatsApp team, encryption was non-negotiable.
There was a lot of talk about, do we really stand by our users' privacy that we promised to our users? And Brian was the first one. He said, I'm done, I'm leaving.
We'll be right back. WhatsApp co-founder Brian Acton left Facebook at the end of 2017. This was following pressure from the company's executives to monetize the messaging app.
And in doing so, he left an enormous amount of money that he could have collected on the table, about $900 million. So our sourcing told us back then, Brian, while all this discussion was going on with the ads, he decided to go back and look at his contract. And in the contract, right, it said if they're going to put ads in WhatsApp, then he's allowed to get his money faster. And so he tried to enforce that according to our sources. And Facebook was basically like stonewalling, like threatened legal action. And he already had made, at that time, he was worth about $3 billion, I believe we reported. And he just decided to leave.
What can you tell us about what ultimately made him decide it was time to go?
Listen, these guys are billionaires. Jan at that time was worth about $9 billion. So he didn't really have to stick around. Not really. That seems like an astronomical amount of money to normal people, but to executives who are already billionaires, maybe it's not worth going against your mission to collect that money.
A few months later, in March 2018,
the data firm Cambridge Analytica was able to access the private information of 50 million Facebook users without their permission.
Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook's parent company, Meta, will join other tech executives to face a deposition over the Cambridge Analytica scandal.
Investigation amid word it may have mishandled data. The information was later used by Cambridge Analytica, a consultant to the Trump campaign.
Cambridge Analytica. It's the name of the now defunct political consulting firm and a scandal that rocked Facebook. The firm managed to obtain data from close to 87 million Facebook users without their consent, later selling that data to politicians. And as details of the breach came out, an online movement to #DeleteFacebook grew.
And one of the people that posted was Brian Acton. And it was a huge deal when he got on Twitter and posted delete Facebook, because that was sort of like, wow, actually one of their own is encouraging people to delete Facebook.
To come out publicly and tweet like this, that part was shocking. Not that he said what he said, but that he actually took a stance in public.
Then, in April of that year, Coombs stepped down.
He also was very frustrated with where the discussions were going. He, in fact, also was on Facebook's board. So his departure was even, bigger of a deal, you could argue.
These two engineers had built the most popular messaging app in the world, sold it to Facebook for a record amount, and became billionaires in the process. Now, they were walking away. Do you think they were naive in any way, just given the price tag that Facebook paid for them, despite the promises made, as Facebook was courting them?
I mean, we certainly thought a lot about that, and analysts have said, like, guys, like, you agreed to this purchase by Facebook, which is clearly this giant tech company that cares about making money. So, yes, you could definitely look at this situation and say, were these guys naive to be sold to a company like that? But on the other hand, they knew that. They were eyes wide open, and that's why they demanded all this stuff, including in their contract, from these guys so that they could remain separate.
What did you glean from watching the aftermath of this deal?
This was like the first deal that really showed kind of what Facebook is after. And I mean, I don't say that to fault Facebook. They're not a nonprofit. They're a business. They're a business, a publicly traded business that needs to make money. And so it's funny to look back on those early days of when the sale happened in 2014. There was definitely this innocence about tech and about Facebook, and that definitely played a part in opening the eyes, I believe, of consumers to that ecosystem.
Acton left Facebook and later joined Signal, where he's now the executive chairman and interim CEO. Signal being the encrypted, privacy-first messaging platform that's run as a nonprofit. Koum, on the other hand?
Jan has been a little bit more MIA. When he left, he said he was going to go collect Porsches and do things like that.
And then he made headlines last year for making sizable political donations in the U.S. midterm elections. As for Neeraj, he left Facebook at the end of 2018. He co-founded a new social app called Halo with user privacy in mind. And in launching the company, he had something of a big tweet himself. It read,
In 2014, I was the chief business officer of WhatsApp, and I helped negotiate the $22 billion sale to Facebook. Today, I regret it.
His post went on to explain what went wrong from his point of view. Neeraj, what motivated you to make this post?
All the issues that were coming out of the Facebook camp just kept on increasing after that. Cambridge Analytica was the first big one, but I think there was, a lot more that came out. The misinformation piece, the hate speech piece, the election interference, those things just kept going on and on and on. And the realization that I had was, all these years, last 20 years or so, we built all these phenomenal products that serve so many users across the globe. Have we lost the plot, right? Or obviously, we've done really well. We've built these amazing products, keep people connected, serves a need. But in this rush to get to these users and build these amazing companies and monetize, we've actually lost the values of how a business should be built and what it does for the users and how it keeps its promises. And eventually it became very clear to me that, we have to take a stance at some point. But it's also a good time that we talk about, what happened, how it could have been different.
Do you think the fallout from this deal will have any effect on how we communicate online, how we think about privacy?
People are waking up to it. The government's waking up to it. We've seen the effects of it over the years. And, I'm not against advertising. The goal is that you can now build a social product without the need of actually compromising your users' privacy and data and selling it to the advertisers, right? It's not about, killing the advertising industry or anything.
In your post, you spoke of this perverse business model of growth and monetization that comes at the expense of users. What do you think the solution is for online communication and social media?
We have come a long way where you can actually build subscription businesses, right? There are enough examples of Netflix and Dropbox and a bunch of other apps that have said, look, we want to have a direct relationship with our users. We'll give them value and they'll pay for it, right? People care about their privacy. They understand how these apps work, what they do for them, what data do they use and how. So it's sort of like a movement. It's a change in I call it an EV moment of the social world. The electric vehicle moment of our world, where you've been used to using the gas engines forever, and then Elon comes around and says, okay, I'm going to build Tesla and most of the cars in the future will be electric. So it's sort of like taking a different stance and saying, okay, we've been used to something, it works, but now we have to do it better and different.
My last question for you, Neeraj. You sit in a very, I think, special position with a very special perch over there in the Bay Area, looking at the future of technology and our communication. What should we be worried about what's sort of coming down the track, or what you're thinking about and the problems you're trying to solve?
There's this belief here that all the things that we do are great and we are always right and we don't have to really be responsible. I think it's a good time for tech to say, okay, obviously we do very important things, but that doesn't mean that you don't take responsibility of what happens after the products get used by so many people. So whether it is AI, that is the next big thing that everybody is talking about and working on. Every frontier that we have been working on and we continue to work on, it has to be with a lot of responsibility towards the user and the effects of it. For me, that is the biggest learning, and that's, I think, something which we should push more and more for everywhere. That has to be the biggest change, I think, and it is happening, because it is going to only get better, I think, from here.
That's it for us this week. Thanks for listening. We're bringing you inside deal stories on The Closer, and now it's your turn. Tell us about a time when you were the closer. We're all involved in deal making every now and then, even if we don't realize it. Maybe it's negotiating your salary, your rent, or your kids' allowances. Whatever it is, we want to hear about it. Here's how. Send us a voice memo with your first name and where you're from. And then in just a few sentences, tell us what the deal was and what it meant to you. You can email your audio file to hello@thecloser.fm. We'll review all the submissions, and we just might play yours on a future episode. Now, if you want more from The Closer, we have the newsletter for you. Go to closer.fm to sign up. It's written by journalist and Closer producer Ben Walsh, and it's witty, informative, and the place where he dives into the mechanics of M&A and analyzes deals in the news. You'll also get a chance to see show notes from each episode and much more from our team. So just sign up at thecloser.fm. And this week on the Brazen Plus subscription channel on Apple Podcasts, Ben and I break down Facebook's long approach for WhatsApp. Find it on Apple Podcasts. Again, that's the Brazen Plus subscription channel. The Closer is a production of Project Brazen in partnership with PRX. Our show's produced by Isabel Kirby-McGowan and Ben Walsh. Siddhartha Mahanta is our editor, Mariangel Gonzalez is our project manager, and Lucy Woods is our fact-checker and head of research. Golda Arthur is our showrunner, and Bradley Hope and Tom Wright are executive producers. At Project Brazen, Francesca Gilardi Quadrio Curzio and Noor Abdel Latif are podcast strategists. Megan Dean is our programming manager, and Ryan Ho is design lead. Thanks to Eric Gomez for audio engineering and sound design, and Alex Garcia Amat for composing. I'm Aimee Keane. Thanks for listening.